Well, I saw this article that said, don't sleep on the Ravens free agency strategy so far. And I gotta tell y'all, because that's how I'm feeling right now about the Ravens free agency strategy. So, all right, y'all, welcome in to the Be More Show. Let's talk some free agents, okay? Let's get right into it. Let's talk some free agency news, okay? Um, the Ravens have been very quiet throughout this free agency period, and I'm looking around to figure out who's surprised, okay? Because this is what the Ravens do every single year. It's so funny. It's so funny. It's so funny because, of course, we got big news yesterday, which I was excited about. I will say that. We got big news on Tuesday that the Ravens have signed DeAndre Hopkins. And right before that, I was literally sitting there saying, man, I need to go in here and I'm going to film a video about how boring the Ravens free agency is. I was literally picking in the group chat about how everybody, all my friends' teams is out here making moves, and the Ravens over here just waiting it out, just waiting for the perfect opportunity, waiting for the perfect moment. Right now, I get it. We got the Ronnie Stanley re-signed, which was cool. I'm completely fine with that. Then the DeAndre Hopkins news comes out, and hey, look, man, look. I don't know. I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, but I'm gonna. I don't know if I've been as excited for a move as this DeAndre Hopkins one. The only thing I can compare it to would be Odell Beckham. So I mean, I really don't feel like I have been as excited for a Ravens move since OBJ, receiver wise, because I was excited about Derrick Henry as well. I feel like the Ravens have a way of doing this. They have a way of starting slow in free agency, re-signing some guys, restructuring some guys, and then they end up making at least one big move where you're just like, okay, this was kind of what we were waiting on. This is what we were waiting on EDC to do. Now, I've heard a lot of people say better late than never. I mean, I'm sure there's the complaints about DeAndre Hopkins and potential age, and is this a typical Ravens move, right? One of those moves where it's like, are you grabbing somebody past his prime? Or are you grabbing somebody who may not be able to do as much as you need them to do? But here's the thing: this is going to always be my thing, and I'll probably die on this hill that I like to get on when it comes to veteran wide receivers specifically, and this Ravens offense, the way it is currently built. DeAndre Hopkins, similar to Julio Jones a couple years ago, like I said, and how I felt about OBJ at the time, DeAndre Hopkins is a steal for the Ravens, right? I put him right there with that Julio Jones signing I wanted a couple years ago. Whereas, like, you got your guy. You have your guys right there. Zay Flowers, everybody knows. You got to respect Zay Flowers until proven otherwise. And Zay Flowers is that guy, right? He is that guy for the Ravens. But if you take Zay Flowers off of this team, it really makes you think. Now, my knee-jerk reaction to the playoff loss against Buffalo, I went back to some prior experience that I had with the Ravens losing football games. I did. I said, you know what? Nobody is scared of these wide receivers without Zay Flowers. Now, whether I was being too emotional at that point or whether I was being completely for real is irrelevant right now, because realistically, let's just be honest. You add DeAndre Hopkins to this team, and people want to question, is it a needle mover? Let's just hypothetically say Zay Flowers, the same situation happens. Unfortunate situation, unfortunate timing. Can Rashad Bateman and DeAndre Hopkins pick up the slack? Absolutely, I think they can. As opposed to some of the guys you had out there running routes for you late last season when an injury that was unexpected and you weren't expecting to have. I mean, you got Anthony Miller out there, right? You know, Tez Walker sometimes, right? Of course, you had Nelson Aguilar out there. Like, yes, you have Bate, and Bate is great, right? Like bars, but Bate is a good receiver. I like Bate a lot. I've told y'all before. I said it last year when they signed him. I felt like last year was going to be a really good year for him. I don't think it was as good as I felt like it was going to be, but it was still a pretty good year for him. I think he proved that he deserves to stay and has a role in this offense. But having DeAndre Hopkins on this team just gives that team that extra added firepower that they need, right? Because I know there's a lot of question marks around Mark Andrews and whether or not he will be traded, whether or not he will be a part of this team after what happened in the playoff game. And I've said it before. I've said it before. I've kind of given my thoughts about it. I think he'll be a Raven. I really do. One of the greatest Ravens tight ends of all time. Probably if he hangs up the cleats today, is a Hall of Famer more than likely for what he's done. Obviously, he's overachieved, and to say that, I think he'll still be around. I think the way Todd Monken runs his offense, I think he's really good at utilizing every single piece is on his chessboard, and also every single piece of space that's on the board, right? And I think Likely and Andrews could be a really good combination. You add in DeAndre Hopkins, and I think you get a guy that you don't have. I talked about this 2 years ago. We've been talking about this for 8 years now. And we've been talking about the fact that the Ravens don't have that jump ball guy. Even Rashad Bateman, as much as I like him, as much as I think he's a good receiver, a solid receiver for the Baltimore Ravens, he's not that guy, pal. Right? He's not that guy, okay? He's not that go up and get it jump ball type receiver. He's not. I mean, Mark Andrews gives you more of that than a guy like Mark Andrews gives you more of that than a guy like Bate would, I think. DeAndre Hopkins, you get to the red zone, it's dangerous. You get to the red zone and he becomes really good. Honestly, I'm honestly a little bit surprised. Like, I'm just gonna be honest, y'all. Like, I'm a little bit surprised that he didn't have better stats. Once he was traded to Kansas City. But to be honest with you, I felt like he had a good season in Tennessee in 2023. I felt like he had a good season in Tennessee back in 2023. And then I think, he had some injuries pop up on him in early 2024. And then, he did pretty good with Kansas City. I don't know if he ever really found his true spot in Kansas City, though. I don't feel like he really found his true spot, right, where he really wanted to be in Kansas City. But I felt like he was a big red zone threat for them. I felt like he created probably, similar to what Odell did. I think when he was here, he creates open windows for other guys because you have to respect DeAndre Hopkins because of who DeAndre Hopkins is, right? I mean, DeAndre Hopkins has been pretty consistent. As long as he's been healthy, he's been pretty consistent. I think last year was a little bit of a step back from him in comparison to his previous seasons, and that may beg that question. But like I talked about before, for me, when I look at DeAndre Hopkins, what DeAndre Hopkins can do still to this point, because he's not the guy for the Ravens, I think that's the biggest part of this whole situation, right? I mean, when we're talking about trading for DeAndre Hopkins back in 2019, back in 2020, right? Back when he became a free agent in after the 2022 season. I mean, practically he was coming in to be the guy for the Ravens, right? He was coming in to be that guy for the Ravens. And now he doesn't have to be. he can still showcase the talent that he is, but he don't have to have the pressure of being that guy. And I think that's big. I think honestly, I think that's big. And interestingly enough, Sports Illustrated put out an article and they said, don't sleep on the Ravens free agency, right? Don't sleep on what the Ravens are doing free agency wise. And let's pull it up. Let's read it together. Let's talk about it. And let's just see what we thinking. I ain't been able to hang out with y'all for a minute, so we gonna hang out for a minute. To start free agency, but things are looking smooth. And of course, we had to re-sign the Rock. So I mean, it's basically saying that the Ravens have not done a whole lot to start free agency. But if anybody knows the Ravens like they think they do, oh, it ain't even showing up. Let me try. Let me stop sharing and bring it back up then. Let's see if I can pull this thing back up for y'all. All right. But I mean, basically it's saying that the Ravens have not done. Actually, let's start with this other one. I'm gonna start with the other one first. Because I think let's go through the free agency, what they've done in free agency first, and then let's try that. Let's see if there we go. All right, so let's go through the Baltimore Bandits free agency tracker first so we can get a good feel on free agency, just in case you've been living under a rock. Maybe I have, and maybe I'm catching up for myself. All right. But let's talk about it. So the free agency tracker, I'll scroll on down. Of course, we have Michael Pierce retiring, which I think was not surprising. I mean, I think he's muddled over it for a while. He always ended up coming back. So I mean, I'm not necessarily surprised about that one. But Michael Pierce calling it a career. Arthur Millette being cut. To be honest with you, I'm not surprised by that one either because I feel like with Arthur Millette, he was kind of just like a utility piece almost, right? He was like a utility piece. And I think the Ravens have shown, if I'm not mistaken, I feel like the Ravens have shown that. I mean, I was going to say that I feel like they've shown they have depth in the cornerback room. And I don't know if that's true or not. I think they believe in TJ Tampa, though. I mean, a lot of people is pushing that TJ Tampa agenda. So we'll see how that goes. But it'll be interesting to see maybe if he even comes back. Of course, DeAndre Hopkins, we talked about that before. I mean, it's going to be one of those things. I mean, with Nelly gone, DeAndre Hopkins, let's just say at worst is a wide receiver 3, I think is better than anything, right? I mean, that's better than what Nelson Agholor was doing. To be honest, Nelson Agholor wasn't a 50-50 ball guy, but Nelson Agholor was productive in this offense for the position that he was playing. So that was that. Patrick Ricard, I feel like this is a good one too. Him returning back to the Ravens, I feel like this was a good re-sign too, because Patrick Ricard, a lot of people were peeking a little bit over there at Juszczyk, and I think the thing about Patrick Ricard is you don't have to worry about the money as much with Patrick Ricard. Whereas I feel like Juszczyk, and I mean, arguably, can I say this? Arguably, they're the same player, right? Arguably, they're the same player. Juszczyk is a little more athletic, but I mean, how many tight ends do the Ravens need? So I mean, but I feel like Ricard, when you getting the ball out of the backfield, I mean, you don't need him out there running routes or nothing. This ain't Greg Roman's offense, but I do think Patrick Ricard is a good option for the Ravens because you need a fullback for this offense. And I felt like, you would try to jump at Juszczyk, but the problem is Juszczyk is going to command money. Whereas I feel like Patrick Ricard isn't going to command as much, even though I think they're 1A, 1B when it comes to fullbacks. And you can argue Patrick Ricard is better than Juszczyk, but I'm not going to be too controversial here because I know y'all are. But I mean, you can argue Patrick Ricard is a better fit for the Ravens as well when we talk about money and we talk about all that, and what he can do. I mean, I think having Ricard on the field, with Derrick Henry has been big too. And I just think Ricard, he's kind of perfect to fit the smash mouth Ravens offense that the Ravens have right now. So I mean, I'm cool. I'm cool with Ricard, right? I'm cool with that one coming back. Chris Board going to the Giants. Not too worried about that one. Malik Harrison going to the Steelers, who also picked up, who did pick up DK, which is pretty crazy. Like, and I think that's the other frustrating part about being a Ravens fan is you watch the rest of the division get better. It feels like every single year, and it feels like the Ravens are just slowly doing what they do, which has created a more successful Ravens team comparatively to those other teams. But still, you love a DK, right? You love, and at the time we talking about, a couple years ago with Jadeveon Clowney, right? When he first signed with Cleveland, and you still felt like he was still pretty elite. So, Malik Harrison, I'm not really surprised about. Brandon Stevens, I'm not, I felt like I'm a little surprised they didn't try to keep him for depth, but I'm gonna be honest with you. Brandon Stevens certainly got paid off of the year before last. So I think that's another part of it too, right? I think that's another part of it too, where it's like Brandon Stevens didn't look good last year. I'm not surprised that he's gone. So I mean, I'm not worried about that one. And then Patrick McCarry to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, honestly, Patrick McCarry got his time to shine last year, and he didn't. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. Like Patrick McCarry got his time to shine last year, and he didn't. He did not shine at all. I mean, honestly, he didn't show me nothing. Unfortunately, he didn't show me anything, not one thing at all. So I think that's the other part of it too. Like I feel like McCarry had his chance last year, and he simply didn't do anything. Didn't do anything. But back to the article we was talking about when we said, are we sleeping on the Ravens here with this free agency strategy? Is this what the Ravens do? The Ravens are good at this, right? Ravens are good at this. I did take offense. All right, I'm not gonna lie to you. I did take offense. Shout out to 86 Goals. Yeah, look, I appreciate you. I appreciate you finally making it. You've been hanging out with me for a minute, so I appreciate it. I appreciate you for being patient with me over this last little bit. Okay, it's been a little boring in Ravens football land, I think. But anyway, look. This is the thing that got me right, because they're talking about how you keep Ronnie Stanley. You did lose Patrick McCarry, you lose Brandon Stevens, right? But you did keep Ronnie Stanley, which is good. Of course, get out of here now. But of course, DeAndre Hopkins was also a good one, right? Only outside addition was DeAndre Hopkins. Now, we got docked a little bit here from Sports Illustrated when it comes to Patrick McCarry. Because it says McCarry signing with the Jacksonville Jaguars and Brandon Stevens joining the New York Jets keep the Ravens offense from being an A off-season grade from being an A. Look, Ravens are always boring unless we mess it up. Look, and the Ravens do this all the time. Like this is how they do it. This is what they do for free agency. Like I've gotten used to the boredom. Okay, I really have. I have gotten used to the boredom with the Ravens in free agency. So I completely get it. Like, the only thing that wouldn't have been boring is if like Ronnie Stanley would have got released or something, and I would have been throwing things. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. But I mean, I don't feel like losing Brandon Stevens. Can I say something? I don't feel like losing Brandon Stevens or Patrick McCarry is a big deal. I just don't. I don't think it's a big deal at all. But this is the funny part here, right here. Right? Let's talk about this part right here. I'm gonna try to zoom in on it. Get this ad out the way anyway. So this says the Ravens are on with 11 draft picks. So if they won't have a huge free agency, they shouldn't expect to do a whole lot more than what's happened. They shouldn't. Okay, so it's basically since they have 11 draft picks, free agency ain't really a worry, right? free agency ain't really a worry because they have 11 draft picks. Now I'm gonna wrap up with this, okay? Just basing it off of that statement. We didn't lose them. We let them slowly drift away as we accelerated, right? Like we just, we was like, you ain't gotta put the seatbelt on this time, all right? Just hang out back there, and then we just kind of like, oh, get out of, we sped up a little bit. We hit the gas on them, okay? I get it, but to me, the Ravens having 11 draft picks don't matter to me. Because I think the Ravens, and I'm wondering, because I don't know off the top of my head, but I think the Ravens need to make one more big free agency move, right? I think the Ravens need to make one more big free agency move, and honestly, I think it's at positions. I think it needs to be a guard. I'd love to see a veteran guard or something. I'd love to see a veteran guard or an elite pass rusher. I know the Ravens are mocked to get a pass rusher in the first round, and I would not be surprised if they got a lineman in the second round. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up being exactly what the Ravens need. But given the Ravens' track record, specifically when it comes to and I don't even know if anybody's left really, but specifically when it comes to free eight to the draft, I don't trust the Ravens to pick an elite pass rusher. I don't. I expect the Ravens to pick an average pass rusher early on in the draft, utilize them, and then they break out in their fifth year and then get paid to walk away. That's what I expect, right? That's what I expect. I mean, you got Dante Fowler out here, who I would not necessarily love. Azeez Ojulari, maybe. I mean, I feel like a lot of the big guys that you would want pass rush wise are gone, to be honest with you. And I mean, there ain't really no guards or none neither. Let me look at this off the market real quick. Let me see. Can I do? Oh, I'm playing a video and I'm not trying to, but I feel like he seems to lead out taking a pay cut. I mean, I don't know. That's the hard part because I mean, of course, you had Josh Sweat out there at one point in time. Honestly, free agency looked kind of. Will Fries could have been an interesting one, maybe. But I mean, you got him coming off injury, so would you really want to do that? Honestly, given what I'm seeing, I mean, Khalil Mack, maybe. I mean, it just depends on how good do we think Khalil Mack is, right? I mean, I know he resigned with the Chargers, but I'm just saying, like, hypotheticals from before. I'm just not impressed by this, really, to be honest with you. So I mean, the Ravens might just have to do their thing, They might just have to do their thing in the draft and maybe even trade around a little bit and really find a couple of guys that they really want. Because I mean, honestly, for me, going into free agency as I wrap up, I felt like going into free agency, I felt like the biggest thing that the Ravens should probably do is shore up the offensive line. If they weren't gonna get a wide receiver, I honestly for once, I felt like I would much rather them attack the offensive line and edge rushers and stuff like that, as opposed to anything else, right? Like I would much rather them attack offensive line, shore up the offensive line for Lamar, because I feel like regardless of who Lamar's throwing to, if the protection's good, they'll find a way. So that was what I was thinking. But like I said, I'm not mad about DeAndre Hopkins pickup. I'm definitely happy about that one. But honestly, going back and looking at who was out there, I don't know if there was a lot of guys out there. I mean, realistically, right? Weirdly enough, I feel like there's always a couple of splashes, but it just didn't seem like it. I mean, I know another one was Myles Garrett, right? He was asking for a trade, but of course Cleveland wasn't going to trade Myles Garrett to the Ravens. But I did feel like that could have been the perfect move for the Ravens if they could, finesse to get it out of there. But I mean, the Browns aren't going to trade within division to the Ravens, who are already destroying them every single year anyway. And even when they do get their one win, it's not like it's helping them propel themselves to the playoffs, where the Ravens are in a completely different stratosphere than they are. So there's that. But anyway, I'm excited to see what's going to happen with the rest of this. I'll be interested too to see what's going to happen with the draft. I'm trying to get somebody on for the draft so I can see who's the who's this year, because I'm a little, I'm a little green on the draft right now. I don't know who's the guys. I'm gonna do some research my darn self, and we'll be back and we'll talk about it. But definitely hope you guys enjoyed 86 Ghosts, my friend. Appreciate you for coming by as always. We'll see you guys on the next episode of the Be More Show. Until next time, my friends.